Okay. There we go. All right. Good. Hello. That works. Very minor issue to start with. I had unplugged my headset to use, I guess it was Saturday, when we did Crystal Chronicles. And so, yeah, when I replugged it back in, I didn't know what to do with it yet. But we got it. Hello, how are you, Roz, and everybody else? I hope you're having a lovely day and ready to do a lot of Latin. Heck yeah! We're going to finish it today, no matter how long it takes us. And I really don't think it's going to take us that long. I believe there are 1 or 2 more constructions, 2 syntax, and then just review. So nothing, as I recall, too problematic. So, and hey, Max, I'm doing okay. All right, so last time we did indirect statement, I heard that Fudge was hungry, because Fudge is always hungry. So this is what I hear. I hear it from the voice of the cat himself, in fact. But to make that statement, that is an indirect statement, because the direct statement is just Fudge is hungry. I heard that Fudge was hungry would be the indirect, and it is verb of the head in whatever tense, whatever you need it in, then an accusative infinitive construction. You nailed it, Roz. That's exactly what he sounds like when he's very hungry. Indirect questions are even easier. For direct questions, we'll just use the one that we have here. Who conquered the Gauls? I'm like missing half my face. I've been finicking with this webcam because the fudge monster knocked it off, so it did not retain. There we go. Okay, who conquered the Gauls? Direct question. Indirect question, he asked who conquered the Gaul. The Gauls. Ooh, more than one Gaul in question here. So in English, as you see, nothing changes. Who conquered the Gauls? Who conquered the Gauls? In Latin, all you do is change that verb from indicative to subjunctive. All right. The only thing that can be tricky is that sometimes you don't even notice that it's an indirect question. I would say that's the biggest trip up with indirect questions, that you simply don't realize that you are using an indirect question. It's more obvious when you're using a verb of asking, such as peto, postulo, quieto, rogo. But any kind of question word can set it up. Who, when, how, why. I wanted to know how he did that. That's an indirect question, how he did that. It just doesn't sound like an indirect question to me sometimes. So that can be tricky, but otherwise, again, you just turn that verb into a subjunctive. So, quis Gallus vincit, who is conquering the Gauls, rogat, quis Gallus vincat, he asks, present, who is conquering, present subjunctive the Gaul. So, I don't know why I keep making it singular. If we go into secondary tense with the perfect here, he asked, rogavit, quis Gallus vinceret, using the imperfect subjunctive. He asked who was conquering the Gauls. Who's conquering the Gauls this time? Yeah. Ubi est Roma? Where is Rome? The number 1 first day question to ask if you're teaching Roman Civ. Do you know where Rome is? I was once in study abroad in Greece, and she didn't actually know where Greece was. It was a crowning moment of that study abroad trip. All right. Ubi est Roma? Rogat ubi sit Roma? He asked where Rome is. Sit present. Rogavit ubi esset Roma. He asked where Rome was. Esset, imperfect subjunctive. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. But where is Rome? Exactly. Otherwise, how would you know to do what you need to do? Caesare ne Gallus vicit? Did Caesar conquer the Gauls? So here we got a past tense in the verb, vicit. Did conquer, perfect. So we're going to see the perfect subjunctive in the primary and the pluperfect subjunctive in the secondary. So rogat num Caesar Gallus viceret. He asks, rogat, whether, num is a question word. Caesar Gallus viceret, which is a perfect subjunctive. So perfect tense in main verb. In the direct question, you have a primary tense for the main verb setting up the indirect question, then you'll use the perfect. If you have a past tense, rogavit, you'd use the secondary tense, which is the pluperfect. Favorite cart. Is that a pun, Roz, about Greece? Right. My favorite cartography throwaway joke is when you reference a place that sounds feasible in its existence, and all you provide is a map of Europe, and on it it says, "It's in here somewhere." Punch is much too amused by himself for that comment. Rogavit num Caesar Gallus vicet. He asked whether Caesar had conquered the Gauls. Secondary, 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 primary, primary. So go back and review those primary and secondary subjunctive tenses, right? If the main verb is a primary tense, you're going to have a primary subjunctive, which is present or perfect. If the main verb is secondary, you're going to have a secondary subjunctive, which is imperfect or pluperfect. All right. Indirect questions are usually introduced by interrogative words. You can use num, as we saw here, just to mean whether. So indirect question. In an indirect question, the verb is in the subjunctive and its tense is determined by the law for tense sequence. Again, primary, primary, secondary, secondary. There's some idioms. Moving on. I guess we should do one example, huh? All right, number 4. Non scitis cur Galli sub montem sese contulerent. Do you not know, non scitis, why the Gauls gathered themselves up, contulerent, sese, together, under the mountain? So, they're hiding under the mountain for fortifications. But using a perfect subjunctive, because this is in because the main verb is primary tense, so we're either going to have a present or a perfect subjunctive, but we use the perfect subjunctive because the question has to do with what was in the past. All right, vocabulary review. Dative of purpose, or end for which. Never heard that term for it before. Learned a lot about European history from Europa Universalis 4. That's totally fair. We need to watch more History Channel videos. Punch does not look enthused by this. I love history. All right. So, dative of purpose. This is kind of a weird use of the dative. It has to do, in the Roman mind, that whatever the main clause is for something. Usually that's an indirect statement, but sometimes it's, well, what it's for. So in each of these sentences, we find a dative expressing the purpose or end for which something is intended or for which it serves. So let's read through them. Exploratores locum castris delegerant. The scouts chose a place for the camps. Right? That's what they're for. Hoc erat magno impedimento Gallis. This was a great impediment for the Gauls. That's not really dative of purpose, that's just indirect object. Or, okay. Because I was focusing on Gallius. All right. This was magno impedimento for the purpose of a great impediment for the Gauls. We'll get back to that. Okay, well, it doesn't have to be History Channel, obviously. That's a little bit suspect, I agree. I just mean more historical videos. Okay. Duas legiones praesidio castris relinquit. He left 2 legions for the purpose of a guard for the camps. All right. So we're using a lot of datives in kind of a weird way. This purpose. Castris, impedimento, and praesidio. In the second and third, we also have a second dative, gallis and castris, which is a person or thing affected. That can also be called the dative of reference. It seemed like a good idea to me, in my view. That's the dative of reference. So these are true datives. Well, thanks, book. Covering the relations of for which and to which. They're just kind of slightly different. So I want to look at number 2 again. Hoc erat. So this was, this whatever it is, for the purpose of a great hindrance for the Gauls, right? They did this for a great hindrance for the Gauls. We'll get to it, hopefully. Let's just keep reading what he said first. The dative is used to denote the purpose or end for which, often with another dative denoting the person or thing effective. Okay, but are you going to talk about the double dative? He's not going to talk about the double dative. I mean, that's what he's talking about, but it's really rare, and it's super exciting when you see it. But number 2 and 3 are double datives, where you have both a dative of reference and a dative of purpose. Go check it out. All right. Let's see if there's a good dative here. All right, we'll just do the first sentence. Well, 2 sentences. Rogavit cur illae copiae relectae essent, responderunt illas copias esse praesidio castris. He asked why those troops had been left behind. So indirect question, question word, subjunctive. It's a pluperfect subjunctive because we have past tense main verb, and this is further back in the past. They responded that indirect statement, those troops were essay, because we're in the past tense, so we translate it as were, for the purpose of a guard for the camps. With dative of purpose, you kind of have to narrow it down to not being anything else. All right, genitive and ablative of quality or description. Again, not super hard, especially as you can usually translate it quite literally with the English, but good to know they exist. I don't know about the consistent dative. Maybe. All right. So if we have, he's a man of great courage, or a man with great courage, a forest of tall trees, or a forest with tall trees, those are qualities and descriptions of one noun with another in the genitive or the ablative. Hence, ablative and genitive of quality or description. The first to a man is described, the last to a forest. The descriptive phrases are introduced with the prepositions of or which. In Latin, the expression of quality or description is very similar. The prepositions of and with suggest the genitive and ablative, which is exactly what we see in Latin. Vir magnae virtutis, a man of great virtue. Vir magnae virtute, a man with great virtue. Silva altarum arboretum, a forest of tall trees. Silva altis arboribus, a forest with tall trees. Pretty easy. Here we have the difference between Latin and English. In English, we might say a man of courage, but in Latin, you have to use the adjectival modifier. A man of great courage. They wouldn't just say a man of courage. They'd probably just say a courageous man. Okay. So Latin does, the reason we have a genitive and an ablative, is Latin makes a distinction between the two cases in that things having to do with quantity, measurement is usually genitive, and quality or physical characteristics are an ablative. If you're a woman with a lovely face versus a man of large stature, that's generally how they would break it down. Again, not really tricky when you're translating from Latin and English, because it is pretty literal translation. No, you would have to be a man of constant sorrows, which is also a joke, I believe. All right, so let's look at some examples. I've never seen that movie, actually. Confession. All right. Fossa duodecim pedum, a ditch of 12 feet. Okay, because measurement, 12. Homo magnis pedibus et parvo capite. I'm sorry, that was just a silly example. A man with large feet and with a small head. Good. That's a good descriptor. It's very polite. So again, physical characteristics in the ablative. All right. Rex erat vir summa audacia, or Rex erat vir summae audaciae. The king was a man of greatest boldness. They give you a choice here because it's a little bit more ambiguous whether it's measurement or characteristic. It's a little bit fuzzy. Okay, so genitive of description. Numerical descriptions of measure, expressed by genitive with a modifying adjective. Ablative of description, descriptions of physical, the ablative with a modifying adjective. And then either one, descriptions involving neither numerical nor physical may be expressed with either. So again, that audacia isn't quite clear what we're talking about. All right, some idioms. I don't know what number 5's trying to say, so we're going to skip that. Number 4. Germani et Galli non erant eiustem gentis. The Germans and the Gauls were not of the same people, like of the same race. There we go. Genitive of description. Easy. You could also probably argue that's genitive of source. I don't think they talked about genitive of source in this book. So, okay. Yep, 100%. That's a good teaching strategy. Don't do the one you can't explain. Look that one up for later in case someone asks about it. Yeah, number 5 is just weird. So now we're going to look at them. Okay, all, nearly, Germans were, with great, of bodies, men. Wait, we wim we. It's not men. I've played myself. It's force, virtue, not virtue, but like strength. It's wees, not wearies. Weir. It's a rookie mistake. Wees and weir, confusing them. So nearly all the Germans were with great strengths of bodies. We'd probably just translate it with the singular in English. But they're using the plural because they are talking about nearly all the Germans. All right. Review of agreement and of the genitive, dative, and accusative. We are in the review section, everybody. Let's run through to the end. There are 4 types of agreement. The predicate noun or appositive, both of them have to agree with the noun that it refers to. Adjectives, participles, which work like adjectives, they have to agree with the noun. Verb and subject have to agree. Relative pronoun and antecedent have to agree. I don't know why that needed a section, but there we are. Okay, believing in the process. Genitive is translated with of, usually. It can mean possession. It can mean the whole, partitive genitive, quality, description. As we see here, it does not talk about genitive of source or genitive of material. If you are a cat made of anger and rage, that would be the genitive. Our cat is not made of those. He's really just made out of carbohydrates. Right. But the genitive of source, genitive of material, other examples of genitives that I can't think of right now. He's not dumb, though. He's not actually dumb. We just sometimes feel like he is. Those are getting perhaps too specific. There is always the tension of needing to name every single genitive, ablative, nominative, dative, accusative use. And there are some times that the Romans just wrote something in a certain case because they felt like it. It might not be the right case to use. They might have made a mistake. They might have been thinking of something else. They might have been using some wacky idiom of their part of Italy. Whatever the case may be. Okay, yeah, his desire to jump onto the stove is not always smart. You are correct. He just wants the food on top of it, though. He wants it so bad. All right. Dative. 2 or 4 is the thing not directly involved in the sentence, but interested in the sentence. And from there, we get indirect object. Oh, I guess I should have also said with the genitive. The genitive is the adjectival case. It is the case of nouns that let you get more information about another noun, aka it's an adjective. It's just a noun. All right, so the dative, interest in the sentence, but not really part of it. Indirect object, 2 or 4. This can get used in a lot of ways, like with intransitive verbs or compound verbs. So it gets a little bit fuzzy. the object to which the quality of an adjective is directed. Good to me. So again, that dative of reference. And then also dative of purpose. I hope he never jumps onto the stove when it's on. There was one day that Fudge, sniped my soup. It was kind of impressive. I had the soup on the stove, heating up, and I come back in, and on the floor there's like a little trail of cream, and Fudge was, eating something, and it's like, at some point he jumped up, nabbed something, and jumped back down without knocking over the soup. It was almost impressive, but also very frustrating. He also did not set himself on fire, or at all seem bothered by how hot that soup must have been. Maybe his tongue is desensitized. Anyway, dative of purpose. All right, the accusative, much more straightforward. Direct object is the verb that receives action. I mean, the noun that receives action. The direct object, predicate, accusative, subjects of infinitives, because subjects of infinitives are going to be the objects of verbs of the head. So it is the direct object. Objects of preposition that have motion towards them. Duration of time, because you're moving through time and space and places. All those. I don't think Fudge has ever tried to eat paper. He's not that desperate. Although he likes to play with the little shredding bits. But that's just because they're fun and small and he can pounce on them. So it's a different kind of thing. All right, we learned nothing new. Review of the ablative. Ablative is everything else except for the vocative, which we're not going to talk about. So it's a lot of different prepositions. With, from, by, in, at, on, under. At its heart of hearts, back when it used to be a case by itself, it was for separation from. But as other cases died, the ablative had to eat their brains and get their power. Oh, yeah, if it were paper with meat on it, then he'd eat it. 100%. All right. So, things that the ablative does: cause, means, accompaniment, manner, measure of difference. Ablative absolute, description, specification, place from which, separation, personal agent, comparison, place at, time when. Woo, ablative! Woo, ablative! All right, review the gerund, gerundive, infinitive, and subjunctive. A gerund is a verbal noun that is only used as a not neuter singular looking thing. Gerundive is like an adjective, so it gets all the forms, and it's generally used in place of a gerund when there is an object involved, because then you can make it object with an adjective, which the Romans really like to do. Infinitive is used, also like a verbal noun, but only when it's used in the nominative and the accusative. So it can be the subject of to be, and it can complete the meaning of certain verbs. I want to do this. It can also be used to complete the meaning in indirect statements. Subjunctive does everything else. That's kind of cute and kind of sad, Ross. Fudge will definitely not at the yarn when I'm working on it. Because he really likes to play with, string toys kind of thing. He doesn't want to eat it. He just wants to fight with it, wrestle with it. All right, so the subjunctive is used to denote purpose, right? We got our purpose clause, our result clause, relative clause of characteristic, who is the kind of person who would, cum clauses, and indirect questions. It can also be used independently, which apparently we're just never going to bring up in this book. But pro tip, subjunctives can also be used independently for wishing, hoping, and I don't think we ever learned conditionals. We never learned conditionals in this. Good luck, everybody. I guess just translate it how you feel when you find it. Feel your way through that conditional. That's good. I think I did a 5-minute Latin video on it. Go find that. You need to learn. Oh, somebody parking a car. Something was in like the reflection of my TV and I freaked out that somebody was stalking me making a Latin video. All right. So subjunctives also get used in conditionals. If something were to happen, this would have happened. Were, would, should, would. If I should do this, that would happen. And then the third subjunctive is had, would have. If this had happened, that would have happened. So that is how they get translated. Good luck figuring it out, everybody. All right. Again, though, nothing new. So we're done. We did it. We finished this book. It missed a couple things, but I guess he's gearing us up for Caesar, and Caesar doesn't use very many conditionals. He doesn't spend time worrying about ifs and whens. He just does it, I guess. All right. So, with that said, cuties. I am not going to stream Latin for a while, or probably stream in general for a while, due to me not liking my setup. I'm feeling very antsy. So, I think I'm going to try to focus again on making YouTube videos from the comfort of my couch. And I guess I could upload this to Twitch, but also Anansi? You guys know that I didn't make up the word antsy. It's a word, I promise. So I think I will read the Latin. At least that's what I'm thinking. Read the Latin, put the translation across the stream as I go. I might start with some of the readings on here because I imagine they'll be easier and that'll be good practice for me reading Latin. And then maybe get to the New Testament, maybe do the Gospels, maybe do some classical Latin after that. We shall see. Anansi was a spider. I think so. Now that you say that, that sounds familiar. So I guess we will do some stuff on Hercules and then Cornelius Lentulus. I will share in Discord when I get some of these made and read. There we go. Any questions, guys? We made it so far. We made it so far. We done good. Yeah, but look for me occasionally on Punch's channel. We haven't quite decided if we're streaming or not tonight. Punch currently looks a little out of commission, so it might be a no. But we'll see. And if not, I will see you guys around. I'll try to hit your stream up more, Roz, so I can spend a little time with you. So, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching and learning Latin over the year. Yes, we will do it in some channel or another.